Hello and welcome back, friends, to another episode of Lynch Paints, where today I, Lynch, will be showing you all how to paint the fantastic Iron Snakes chapter for your Space Marine armies. So let's grab our paints and paintbrushes and let's dive straight into it. However, before we get started, we're going to need a selection of paints, and these are all the ones I've used in this video for you today, alongside which you will require a medium-sized brush, a sort of roughly large fluffy brush, a small fluffy brush, and a teeny weeny teeny tiny brush for all of those teeny tiny places. Right, so we're going to start out with a simple black acrylic primer, just going all over the model with a nice thin coat. So what we're then going to do is that we're going to grab some of this Iron Warriors silver, and then using a nice fluffy brush, it's going to dry brush all over the model. Next stage, using the same brush, we're just going to grab some of this Runefang steel, so it's a nice brighter silver. And again, we're just going to dry brush over the model again, but we're going to use less paint this time, and this will act as a bit of a highlight for the miniature. And then finally, and this is a bit of an optional extra, but you can go back over some of the miniature with a thin brush, and then we can just do a little bit of highlighting. So now that we are done with the silver, I'm going to move over onto the white. So I've got some of this lovely Corax white, and I keep nudging the camera, I do apologise. I'm just going to thin it down with just a tiny bit of water. I'm going to be doing the shoulder pads, and why not, we're going to do a knee pad as well. So I'm just going to apply probably 1 or 2 coats over the top, and then what we'll do afterwards is that we can always just highlight it with a little bit of the white scar, and then just to add in a little bit more detail, we can always just slap on a layer of the apothecary white just to sort of subdue the white a little bit and just give some nice interesting shades to it as well, and then we can highlight it later on. So just while we're waiting for the white to dry, just in between coats, because it might need sort of 2 or 3, give or take, we're going to go with some of this gold. So I've got this brass scorpion, which is a nice, sort of like a dull gold. It's not too bright, not too vivid. And then we're just going to simply just dry brush, or kind of heavy dry brush, just over the top of the Aquila. And then we can pick out any other little kind of gold elements that you'd like to put on the miniature. And then we can highlight these using some of this Retribution armor, which is a nice brighter gold. Then we can just dab it in to a few little key points just to make the gold really pop. So just as the contrast paint is drying, we're just going to look at his leather sort of pouches and belts and that sort of thing. So we'll take some of this Mournfang brown and a little bit of this Abaddon black, give it a nice mix, thin your brush down with just a tad of water, and then we'll do all of his little accessories, giving it a nice base coat first, and then we will add more of the Mournfang brown into our mixture for the kind of the mid-tone and also the highlights. So now that our white areas are now dry, we're just going to go back over. I'm just going to use some of this white scar, and then with a fine detail brush, we are going to thin it down with some water, and we're just going to do a couple of little highlights, just to make it stand out. So after a few coats, I'm still not too happy with how the white's turned out. Now, white is notorious for sucking absolute balls for getting a nice smooth coat, unless you have an airbrush, and I'm not prepared to set up my rig just for the sake of 2 shoulder pads. So instead what we're going to do, we are going to employ the dry brush technique. So I've got this little small sort of, used to be a makeup brush, and we are just going to dry brush over the top using some of the white, and this should hopefully give us a smoother transition. And it doesn't matter if it goes into the shoulder pads, because of course we're going to be painting them with a nice red trim. So this may take a little bit of a playing around with just to get it right. Oh, sorry, not the camera there. But using this technique, we should be able to get at least a smoother finish on our white. And we'll see how it turns out. Okay, so that's looking a lot smoother than it was beforehand. So I'm happy with that. I'm happy with that for now. So we're going to move over onto the shoulder pads, which is a nice red. So we're going to want to grab some of this Fiston red and this lovely Abaddon black. So I'll get a nice medium-sized brush. Going to mix the two together, probably a 50-50 mix just to start out with. Make sure your brush is thinned with a little bit of water just to help with the flow and control of your paint. And then we're going to start just to carefully go over the trims. So now that the first layer is dried, we're just going to go back over, and I've added in more of the Mephiston red. It's not entirely pure Mephiston red, so there's still a little bit of black mixed in there, because we're going to be using pure Mephiston red as a highlight at the end. So now that the trim is done, and this is quite a good point, while we are using the black and the red, we're going to do is lenses. So take a little bit of black and our red from before, make a nice deep red. And with a fine detail brush, we're just going to apply paints just in the sort of first, I don't know, 2/3 of the lens, just leaving the back area black, as this will help to maximize contrast for the reflective little spot of white we're going to put in later on. So, rinsing our brush off, we're then going to grab pure Mephiston red. So take a little bit of this, and then we're just going to apply it in the first third of the lens. Then I'm just going to take a little bit of an orange paint. I'm just going to brighten up the red, because if you add in white into the red, you're going to make a nice pink, and that's not really going to be the right sort of colour to use. And so with this, we're just going to add in a tiny little bit at the very front of the lens. Just a tad. Now, rinsing off our brushes, we'll then grab our lovely white scar. Oh, sorry. And then we're going to use this, and then we're going to pop in a little teeny tiny white dot at the back of the lens. So we are now, move them to one side, we're now at the stage where we can do the logo, the symbols and such. So I've got some of this lovely Cantor blue, and just going to thin it, have it thinned down with a little bit of water. And then we're going to start out just by doing the standard sort of troop choice arrow on the shoulder pad here. So after a second coat, it's turned out really nice and smooth. So I'm going to move over to the great beast of Ithaca itself, the great serpent worm thing. And using our same small thin brush, just going to thin it down with a little bit of water. And we're just going to go ahead and make a start. So now I'm just introducing a little bit of this Lothram blue into the mix, as I've noticed that on the logo it tends to be sort of darker at the top and then lighter at the bottom. So I'm just going to go over just parts of it just to brighten it up a little bit and just create that sort of fade look. It will be tricky around the head, so I wouldn't worry too much about that and sort of jump over to just using a brighter highlight on there. And then we'll do something similar as well with the arrow. And so this is how I went about painting the Iron Snakes chapter for your Space Marine armies. It's been a really fun one to do. I was inspired by it by watching a video that Mr. Bones 40k did on the Iron Snakes, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to paint that for all you lovely guys and gals at home that like to watch my painting tutorials. And it's been quite a simple one, even though there has been quite a few paints involved with this. It has been really, really fun, and I imagine that you can get a lot of these churned out in next to no time at all. And if you are looking to bolster your marine forces, then look no further than Wayland Games. They are the I've got an affiliate link for them down in the description down below. They are a UK based retailer, and they stock loads of Games Workshop products at a between 10 to 20% off, as well as a whole host of other board games and card games and such that will tickle your hobby fancies. If you wanted to check out any stills and reels of this miniature, then head over to my Instagram page, which is linked down below as well. And if you want to support me just that little bit further, then I do have a coffee page down below. I need to kind of do a bit of an update on it. I haven't been on there for a while. But you can support me that way, or by clicking the super thanks down below. That's an even easier way, because the button is right there and it takes no time at all. Just click it. If you like this video as well, do show your appreciation with a like. If you're new, subscribe, which would be massively appreciated as always. And without further ado, stay safe, stay beautiful, and we'll see you all next time.